Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek here, trying to get back into casting battle replays on a regular basis, again, for probably the 5th or 6th time. So let's see how it goes this time. In any event, this game is from a tournament that Shadow Online Gaming was running with a bunch of different YouTubers and other members of the multiplayer community that I participated in. Tournament's pretty much wrapped up now, and if you want to catch all the games, I will have a link to Shadow's channel in the description down below, and you can go check out his channel where he's casting 3 of the games a day because it was a round robin series tournament, so there was a ton of games. In any event though, I'll be covering most of the games here on my channel that I played in. Not all of them. There's one that I don't have the save for, unfortunately, though I might ask my opponent if he had the save. But in any event, let's go ahead and get started. So this first game was between me and Gojira, who you should know Gojira if you frequent the multiplayer community often of Total War Warhammer. He's a very, very good player. So let's very quickly go over the armies, starting with mine. Well, you know what? Let's start with his. So in the front line, he's got 4 units of Skaven Slaves and Spears, who you can already see are taking a little bit of damage. He's got 2 units of Storm Vermin with Halberds in the second line, with 2 units of Plague Monks and 2 units of Storm Vermin with Sword and Board. He then also has 2 units of Rat Ogres. He has, for his general, a Warlord on a Rat Ogre Bonebreaker, who has World Edge Armor, Verminous Valor, Deadly Onslaught, and Rally. He then has a Skaven Assassin, who has Trophy Heads and the Rival Hide Talisman. And then he has a Plague Priest who has Pestilent Birth and Vermintide. Then he's got 3 units of Skaven Slave Slingers and a single unit of Poison Wind Globadiers. So this army was not at all what I was expecting, and you can tell because of my build. I have 2 units of Skink Skirmishers to kind of screen the front line, do some early damage to my enemy, and overall just kind of be a good nuisance. They're really, really good for anti-Rat Ogre play. Then I've got 4 units of Skink Cohorts with Javelins in the back, which I primarily use to deal with Hell Pit Abominations and Rat Ogres. And then my front line is a unit of Saurus Spears with a single Chevron, 2 units of Source Warriors with shields, and then 1 unit of Temple Guard with a single silver Chevron. And the reason I do that is so that their leadership is over 100, which makes them very, very difficult to break, and they will fight to the last man. Then I have 2 Stegodons with Sotek's Sting, as it's called, which are the giant bows. The reason I took 2 of them is that I was expecting him to at least have some war machines, like Warp Lightning Cannons and such. And the Lizardmen are one of the few, these types of war machines, like High Elf Bolt Throwers, Dwarf Bolt Throwers, or the Lizardman Bolt Thrower, which is this, can actually destroy Skaven war machines fairly quickly and accurately. So I almost always bring this against Skaven because that's, you know, I'm used to Skaven countering me with Warp Lightning Cannons. That is not what Gojira did, which is going to be a little bit of a problem. Then I've got a Rev Crystal back here, just because he's kind of a must-have if you're playing Lizardmen right now competitively. Since Cold-Blooded no longer heals, even though I'm totally okay with that, the only way to have reliable healing in your army is with the Rev Crystal. And then finally, I've got Lord Mazdamundi on foot. I started him in the forest. That way, if he did have Warp Lightning Cannons or something like that, he would be hidden. I've got his Sunburst Standard. Then he has Apotheosis, and Arcane Unforging is my only 2 spells. That way I just have a regular heal and then a way to nuke characters and cancel out wizards. And then I've got, of course, Banishment and Ruination of Cities. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this party rolling. So as you can see, the giant bows I have focused onto the Storm Vermin with Sword and Shield because they are probably the most reliable of the Storm Vermin units, and I do have a lot of infantry. And their shields don't actually work against Bolt Thrower fire. Bolt Throwers will just slam right through it, so that's why I'm doing that now. I've got my Skinks just poisoning the Skaven Slave Spears to try and kill as many of them as possible before they reach my front line. And basically, we're just going to be trading missile fire for a couple seconds, but as soon as he gets close enough, I will go ahead and start issuing charge orders with all my different units. And I know my guys are going to absolutely destroy his infantry. But in come the Rat Ogres. You can see they are beelining for my Stegodon. Here, he is going ahead and popping some Plague Monks. Stegodon's under attack from Rat Ogres, the Plague Monk Summon, and the Assassin. I do send forward the Rev Crystal to provide some terror and some healing, and Mazdamundi is also floating his way up. Most of the Skaven Slave Spears have already broken at this point, but as you can see, my Temple Guard are being torn apart by just all the Rat Ogres and the Plague Monks and the shooting attacks. There goes the Rival Hide Talisman, so it's nuking the melee attack of all my units. The Warlord has run forward to engage my Rev Crystal to try and get off the battlefield early. I do have my Skinks bombarding the Rat Ogres as best I can, and over here, he got a little bit too much of a build-up, so I went ahead and threw down a Banishment, which pretty much broke the Stormfront with Halberds and got them out of the way for the moment. Most of my Saurus units are pretty much on death's door if they have not been frenzied already. The Plague Monks are actually a really good counter to the Saurus, because Saurus don't have the highest armor, and Plague Monks just have so much damage. Here, the Assassin runs forward to try and get on Mazdamundi, but I'm using the Skinks as a screen. I also pop Uncanny Unforging, which does a ton of damage and cuts through the physical resistance that the Assassin relies on for defense. I also pop Shield the Old Ones to give myself a ward save. That way, when I activate that spell, it wouldn't completely backfire. The Temple Guard, now that all of the debuffs are off them, they're able to just fight, and their health is much more sustainable. So they're doing much better. I'm throwing down Apotheosis where I can, because the Fear is going to help in getting rid of the Storm Vermin, while I'm also poisoning them with Skink Skirmishers to try and lower their damage. These Poison Wind Globadiers are still being a bit of a problem, and my Stegodons have mostly been dealt with. This Stegodon over here got broken by just getting isolated and taking a ton of damage, and the other one I think is right here. He took a ton of damage too, but they're still alive. Here, the Bonebreaker jumps on Mazdamundi, but I broke these Plague Monks just in time, and Mazdamundi's just going to keep floating around with these Skinks and these Temple Guard just being a bodyguard, just running around, constantly dealing consistent damage to this guy. He has a ton of armor right now at 130, thanks to the World's Edge armor, but that's just not going to protect him from the sheer amount of poison damage coming in. Meanwhile, the Assassin broke, and I dedicated a full unit of Skinks to just chase him off the battlefield, which is fine. My Stegodons are starting to rally and are heading back in. This one's being chased off by a unit of Rat Ogres, but Rat Ogres are way too valuable for my opponent, so I'm totally okay with that exchange. Skinks are just continuously doing peppering damage, and here, thanks to the terror caused by the Bastiladon and the constant pressure of the Skinks, we managed to break the Warlord, especially since he was taking very consistent damage from the Arcane Unforging I threw on him. So now this Skink Skirmisher unit, they're just going to chase him off the battlefield. You know, that's a 400-point unit chasing off a fully kitted out Lord, and they're going to do poison damage, making sure he doesn't run too fast away and isn't able to completely get away from me, while also continuously doing damage to make sure his leadership doesn't recover, and chase him until he runs off the battlefield. Here we get off another banishment on the Poison Wing Globadiers because I need to get rid of them. I've pretty much completely given up on this flank of the battlefield because I know I need to take out the command structure of the Skaven. With their general off the battlefield, they will take a significant leadership penalty, and if you can kill the Skaven's general and you have at least one terror causer on the battlefield, like this Rev Crystal, you're pretty much guaranteed to win, unless something terrible is going on. So you can see here my Saurus are getting fairly overwhelmed. That single Chevron is keeping their leadership high enough, and he just now got around to surrounding me. I do go ahead and throw down a Ruination of Cities, which is going to pop up here and do a pretty considerable amount of damage. Thankfully, all those guys are super bunched up for that. And now he's trying his hardest to finish off this Stegodon, but I throw down Shield the Old Ones to buff his leadership, as well as a Cold-Blooded, so that's plus 24 leadership. Which he's only at 31, so he was at 7 leadership, now he's at 31, so he's completely stable. He also has damage resistance, and I'm throwing down Apotheosis, and the Bastiladon is just spam casting on Mazdamundi, while Mazdamundi is spam casting on the Stegodon, just to keep it alive and make sure it can keep being a threat. At this point, the Skaven start to suffer too many of their command structures running away, and the Terror starts breaking too many units at once. So that basically puts him towards army losses because not enough of the guys are rallied to keep the Skaven's leadership as an army together, and that causes everything to collapse. So that was a great game. Honestly, I thought I was going to lose that game a little bit after our front lines connected because my Stegodons got crushed. Like they took so much damage at the onset because those Rat Ogres piled in with the Plague Monks, and I really underestimated how well the Plague Monks were going to do against my Saurus Warriors. Like, sure, my swords were able to kill a ton of them, but with how many he was getting through summons, the Plague Monks were just tearing my line apart. Thankfully, I was able to keep Mazdamundi safe by just using the massive amount of skinks to slow down the Warlord. And when the Warlord got too ambitious trying to chase down Mazdamundi and get an early kill on him, I was able to just surround him with 2 to 3 units of skinks and a Bastiladon and Mazdamundi, and all of that combined damage plus a Arcane Unforging caused his leadership to break, and then he was just done because he was isolated, he didn't have anywhere safe to retreat, and the direction he ran off was away from his army. So I just had a unit of skinks just run him off the battlefield. And when you're playing Skaven, if you lose your general like that, you're usually going to lose the game. Overall, though, I really like Gojira's list. It caught me very off guard. Thankfully for me, once the general was pretty much dealt with, I was able to break the rest of the army thanks to the terror caused by my Bastiladon, which the strength of this build is that, you know, you have 3 tough terror causers. The Bastiladon and the Stegodons have a ton of armor and a ton of health, and most Skaven players can deal with 2 of them, but 3 is pretty hard. Of course, the Saurus paid their dues, each of them getting easily around 100 kills. The Temple Guard held the line for the entire battlefield, but that's why I ranked them up to 4 Chevron, so they're essentially unbreakable. And then, of course, Mazdamundi did all the heavy lifting with some really key banishments of Ruination of Cities that just killed a ton of rats. And then finally, the Skinks did a great job of... Skinks are awesome because you can use them to chase off important units, which kind of the thing about Skaven that some players might not understand, but most good Skaven players like Gojira do realize about Skaven, is that the strength of Skaven is that a lot of their army will break off, but then they'll rally and come back, which progressively leads to you as a player getting more and more and more and more surrounded. So whenever you're playing against Skaven, one thing you typically want to do is try to have a lot of cheap units, like a couple units of Skinks, for instance, whose job in life is to essentially chase off valuable targets like rat ogres or storm vermin or command structures. That way those units will not rally and come back later in the fight, because that's where you'll run into problems, is when those units start coming back constantly and surround you and you are constantly fighting while your opponent's army is breaking off and coming back in waves. That's what makes the Skaven really strong. Obviously, the Rev Crystal helped a lot because he helped sustain Mazdamundi through the shooting attacks and the assaults by the Assassin and the Warlord. But, yeah, it was a super fun game. Goji played really well. I feel very confident I would have lost that game if his general hadn't come out so far away from the rest of his army and gotten isolated. I think that's what cost Goji this match. But it was a really, really close game. I had a ton of fun. And I look forward to showing you guys the rest of this game, these games from the tournament. I'm going to try and put out roughly one of these a day, unless I've got like a lore video or something else coming out on that day. That way there's more consistent stuff on the channel. I've said that many times, so, you know, take it with a grain of salt. Doing stuff every day is a challenge for me for some stupid reason. In any event, just some quick update news. I am going to be hosting my own tournament this Friday. I'll put out a teaser video probably today or tomorrow, whenever I can get some stuff for it sorted out. But it's going to be very fun. It's going to be very exciting. It's not going to be super crazy. There's going to be 8 players, and all of them are fairly good players. Turin himself is playing, so I hope you're looking forward to seeing him on the battlefield in a tournament for the first time in a long time. I can't even remember the last time Turin played in a tournament. But it's going to be a fairly short tournament because it's only a best of 1 due to the way the system works. But I hope you guys are excited to see it and learn more about it. Other than that, I hope you're all having a great day. Christmas is obviously coming up, and things are going to be a little wild and crazy around here. There's going to be a ton of stuff going on later this week, and there's also going to be a new series starting on the channel that is also going to be fairly short, but it'll be something very new and exciting. So I hope y'all will enjoy it. And with that, yeah, so a lot of mysterious things coming up. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. See you probably later today with a live stream. Bye.